Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, regardless of what time this lecture finds you. I hope it finds you well. This week's lecture, module week 2, we will be getting more information and become more informed as readers. And because of what we read, consume, how we compose, we need to understand that, and particularly in English 102, which is much more research-driven, which means we're not so much worried about the building blocks of writing. We're more worried about how we intake things, how we experience things, how we develop our own thinking and research before we even start writing. So that means we have to explore genre again. Genre is an important facet, and the readings for this week I think are really going to work to make you understand both identity and agency and genre, purpose, audience, those things. So all those things are right there. The other thing that will come into the conversation is the message bias. So every writer has a purpose. They come with their own pack of experiences and expectations and values and, well, an entire universe known as a person and a community that connects to them, and that creates certain biases. Biases are not necessarily bad, but we need to be aware of what those biases are so that we are capable of doing research that is well-rounded, well-developed, and inclusive of all the conversations in whatever topic that we're going to discuss. So, for this week, the objectives are to explain the importance of communication in various cultural, language, and rhetorical situations, which the two readings will deal with. We will implement a variety of drafting strategies to demonstrate the connection between language and social justice. That will occur through the discussion post this time. So the goal for this week's discussion post will be that you guys will work on it this week, you will respond to it, and the next week the discussion post will be that you will go back as the author of each discussion post and continue those conversations. So that's where that will take place. We will implement a variety, I already said that one, sorry, apply the composition processes and tools as a means to discover and reconsider ideas. I'm reading off the thing while looking at you, sorry. So what that means is that we will start to think about ideas, reconsider ideas, and the readings, again, deal with this, participate in the collaborative and social aspects of writing processes, and give and act on productive feedback to works in progress. And again, a lot of this stuff will show up more in the discussion post side than in the website analysis. But the website analysis will give us a good touch of what a genre analysis looks like. Again, it'll give us a refresh for some of us, and for some of you, it'll be the first time you've ever actually done a web analysis. So you will see that under presentations, it is broken up into two sections, but I will, when we finish this recording, we'll move it into one simple presentation. Again, this visibly is just so you can see that there are like two things going on, two conversations that are taking place within the readings. So to get to the readings, you will have to do one of two things. I will either have a live link, or you will do what I just did and open it up as a fresh link. So, excuse me. For this week, we will be dealing with Chapter 2 in the OpenStax text, the writing guide with handbook. You will read through everything. I believe it's 2.4. Yes. Don't worry about if there's an assignment connected to 2.4. The discussion lecture is connected to 2.5, writing process, thinking critically about how to identify how identity is constructed through writing. See, I'm trying to read too fast. Sorry. You will see that the learning outcomes are exactly what I just read to you for the entire week. So this kind of encaps what we're doing when you're done reading. This will be the assignment for week 2. It's very open. I have the prompt and I will show it to you in a moment. So let's go back to this. The second reading for this week is a much simpler reading in my opinion. And this discusses genre from a new perspective. So I'm always trying to re-articulate the way we understand genre, but to keep it in its simplest, too long didn't read format. We understand what literary genres are, I think, especially if we've already gone through high school or we're in the process of going through high school, because things like mystery, Americana, British lit, things like that are usually seen as genres within literature, right? And literature then, ironically, is its own genre within a rhetorical genre. So what I want you to do is I would like you to read and try to take in what they're showing you, because even when they're talking about genres, they're talking about like posts. Ironically, I will point out that two of these things are more what I would define as artifacts. An Instagram post itself is an artifact. We could get into this a little bit more deeply next week if we need to, but understand that a genre is a very broad term. All books are a genre. So if I say within the genre of books, I'm holding the artifact, Red Ops, in my hand, that is different than saying something like for Twitter or a tweet and Instagram post. I would suggest that those are social media. I think it's interesting that they're seen as their own genre, even though they're both social media, right? They're very driven by a bigger meta. There's a collective, if you will, because we could also say things like TikTok, YouTube Shorts, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook posts. If we say all those things, they all could be categorized by a group, which would be the genre. So when you're reading through this, you can think like that. You can look at stuff and go, I don't know if they actually completely understand even what they're saying in some ways. But overall, this is a very good press book. Remember that press books usually are free. They're publications made specifically for publication in the way that this has been published. So it has an open commons license. These are the things where you understand that the person is doing it to make it easier for all of us and to make it free, or at least easily accessible to a larger audience. So again, the readings are this chapter, chapter 2, and this press book, which are both linked here in the readings. So again, I will make an effort to put a link there if I remember to do so after this uploads, and that should make it easier. Otherwise, do it exactly how you saw me do it. Highlight the URL, right-click, or copy and paste it into a new web browser. So, moving on to the assignments. For this week, again, you're doing it if you're already here with me on this stage, which is to read the module agenda and outcomes, and then watch this presentation. The web analysis assignment is due Monday, February 6th. The discussion post for this week is due Monday, February 6th as well, along with the responses. So let's look at what these assignments are. The first one is simple, but I think that you can benefit from it again, because we're gonna have a recapture of what a genre analysis looks like through the actual practice of doing one. For this assignment, you will need to find a website to evaluate. Now that is very open to you. Again, I would not go crazy and go so far out on the outline of what a website is. I would not look for something that is dangerous or inappropriate for an academic audience. Again, if I say it's open to you, that doesn't mean to try to be tricky here. So you will write a 2-page double-spaced APA or MLA formatted paper discussing the following. Remember that I'm allowing you to use APA or MLA depending on what you know, and if you know neither, then we will be developing from there next week. This is sort of just starting to get the nuts and bolts of writing together, and obviously for a research-based class we need to do some analysis. So the first thing is like, what is the name of the website? Understanding that website is the genre, so the name is the artifact. Who is the intended audience? Who is the writer or writers for the website? Do you have any way to evaluate their ethos? So this will be like our first contact with the word ethos in the class. Ethos means expertise or experience. A simple way to think about ethos in a rhetorical appeal as a rhetorical appeal is that by having experience or a title, doctor, esquire for a lawyer, judge, there's an invoked ethos. You trust them or you accept their decisions based off of that ethos. So when they persuade you, that's what that is implying. And if so, what can you tell about their expertise or knowledge? So if somebody has an expertise in, I don't know, let me take a shot here and say you go to Amazon and you're going to use Amazon, which would be a weird one, but it's pretty broad, and you were going to do a genre analysis of Amazon, you could say things like, if it's directing you to a specific product, why is it doing that? Well, now we've moved away from titles. So what other ethos is at play? Those are the type of things you want to think about. Like, do you trust Amazon to make decisions and curate your shopping experience? And if so, why? What is that experience or knowledge that Amazon as an identity brings to that conversation? So that's kind of how I would think about that. You could do it from a lot of different perspectives. You could do it from a journalistic perspective, looking at like a newspaper website. You could do it from, like I just said, Amazon. So that should help. Do they use visual, textual, or another form of persuasion that you can define in your own words that you believe makes the audience value this website over other websites for the same topic? So staying on the example of Amazon, does Amazon do something differently compared to, say, the Walmart website, which has kind of started its own online venture to compete with Amazon? Or you could even do it against something like Etsy. You don't have to discuss the second website, but you can think about how they do things in a specific way that is different from other websites, if that makes sense. So, and then what is the format for this website? Is it something that has a lot of pages, a lot of ability to move around, navigate around, or is it a singular page? Also, you'd be looking at things like, for example, the page we're looking at right now, there's a drop-down menu, so this is the type of navigation tools that this website has. Is the website you're evaluating doing something different? Does it have a different method of entering or allowing readers to enter into the actual content, into deeper pages within a website? Remember that you're not looking at just a web page, you're looking at the entire site of what you're looking at. So with Amazon, you can kind of jump in and jump through pages and see, does this change when we do things? Does the experience change? Does the way it interacts with this particular audience change? Again, this is due February 6th. It has a general rubric. I will add it here. It's the general rubric that we discussed in last week's module. So that is the web analysis. And let us back up quickly and look at the discussion post. Now, like I said, the discussion post is straight from 2.5 writing process, and it's using the summary of assignments, cultural artifacts 2.5, respond to the prompt. And this is the prompt. I'm not going to read the entirety. Again, when you do the reading, you will see it, but it does this specifically point to an artifact. Now, remember, an artifact is a particular thing. Think of it as a proper noun. So if all humans are a group, then men and women are a group, then a name, and this is sort of thinking in a pyramid down to Dr. Straight or Dr. Dean is an individual. Now, I am an artifact then within that group. And so when you think about your own concept of artifact, what I want you to start to think about is how these things start to filter down into something smaller and smaller and smaller. Now, the best example I can offer for an artifact would be something like, if I said all tablets are a genre, right? Tablet is a genre. Then I would say something like an iPad, my iPad Pro becomes an artifact. It does something for me. It has purpose for me. It has symbolic meaning, cultural meaning even, and it fits within the physical object description that is in this prompt, for example. But I could do it on a book. I could do it on a comb. I could do it on this gnome if I wanted to. So those are the sort of physical things that you can sort of talk to or about in your discussion post. The opposite are metaphorical, which means something like a specific song that I really value. I can't tangibly touch it, but I can say how it culturally impacts me, how I value it, how I value that particular song for what that means, and that is sort of how you break that down. There is also a TED Talk here that is, I think, about 8.5 minutes. If you would like to, I would view it. It's an interesting TED Talk, and then respond to 2 other posts. You'll note that in the textbook, it says, I think, 500 to 750 words. I have lowered that for our purposes because this is going to become a 2-part assignment. So we will start with a 250 to 500 word discussion post. That's roughly a page to 2 pages, depending on how wordy you are, how big the words you're using, things like that. And then you'll respond to 2 other posts, and the length of those responses should be roughly 100 to 150 words. You don't have to develop another 2 pages to respond. Even a good question or 2 to a student's post should help develop the conversation for next week. This is worth 50 points as well, meaning that for this week there was a total of 100 points on the table. And again, this particular assignment is important because it leads into next week's assignment. So, I think that covers everything. Let me go back. Again, if you have any questions about the module, about these assignments, please email me first. You can use the copy shop as a last means, but again, I don't necessarily see the copy shop right away, so or the copy house. So your best bet is always email first through inbox, which is literally right here. And I think that should cover everything we need to deal with for the week. Enjoy. The readings are pretty good, and we'll talk soon. Bye-bye.